The council chamber stretched wide enough to hold 1,000 beings from across the galaxy. Deho stood near the back with his arms crossed, watching the representatives from dozens of alien species fill their designated spaces. Some floated in transparent spheres filled with purple gas. Others towered over everyone else on multiple legs. A few looked almost human, but their eyes gave them away. Too many pupils, or colors that didn't exist in nature back on Earth. Hana stood beside him, her tablet displaying notes about each species present. She had spent years studying alien psychology, learning how different minds worked across the stars. Next to her, June checked his communicator for the third time in 5 minutes. The ship captain wasn't comfortable away from his vessel. "They're staring at us," June muttered. "They always stare," Deho replied. "We're the new kids. Still smell like our home planet." Humanity had joined the Galactic Council only 30 years ago. 30 years sounded like a long time to humans, but most of the species in this room had been spacefaring for thousands of years. Some had been exploring the stars since before humans discovered fire. To them, humanity was barely worth noticing. Interesting, perhaps, but unproven, and certainly not important. A deep vibration filled the chamber. The central platform began to glow. A figure materialized there, its form shifting between states of matter. This was Mirasun, one of the Lumini, a species that existed partly in another dimension. Her voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "The time has come once more," she said. "The courage trials will begin in 7 days." The chamber erupted in sounds, clicks, whistles, rumbles, and a few actual words in various languages. Deho felt his stomach tighten. He had heard about the trials. Everyone had. They were legendary. Another figure appeared on the platform. This one was solid, a massive reptilian creature with scales that looked like polished bronze. Velthar of the Skirth Dominion. He was old even by alien standards, and he had never hidden his disdain for humanity. "Every species of the Council must send representatives," Velthar announced. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Every species must prove their worth. The Void Labyrinth awaits." Hana leaned toward Deho. "The labyrinth has 10 chambers. No species has ever completed more than 7. Most fail by chamber 4. "Comforting," Deho said. Velthar's eyes, all 3 of them, scanned the crowd and settled on the human delegation. "Even our newest members must participate. Though, I wonder if species so young, so impulsive, truly understand what courage means." He paused. "Bravery is not the same as recklessness. One requires thought, the other is merely instinct." Several alien representatives made sounds that might have been laughter. Deho felt his jaw clench, but June placed a hand on his shoulder. "Don't," June whispered. "Not here." The selection process happened quickly. Each species nominated their representatives. For humanity, the choice had been made weeks ago. Deho for his engineering skills and combat experience. Hana for her knowledge of alien psychology. June for his leadership and quick thinking. 3 humans against challenges designed to break the strongest minds in the galaxy. They had 7 days to prepare. The preparation facility was a sterile white room filled with equipment. Deho spent his time studying the limited information available about previous trials. The records were frustratingly vague. Each challenge was different, adapted by the artificial intelligence that controlled the Void Labyrinth. The AI learned from each attempt, creating scenarios specifically designed to test courage in new ways. Hana reviewed psychological profiles of past participants. "The species that do best are the ones who can control their fear responses," she said. "The Skirth, for example, can literally shut down their fear centers. The Lumini don't feel fear the way we do. They perceive danger differently." "And humans?" June asked. "We feel everything," Hana said quietly. "Fear, panic, terror. Our bodies flood with adrenaline, our hearts race. We're not built to shut it off." "Then how are we supposed to compete?" June said. Deho looked up from his terminal. "We do what humans always do. We feel the fear and we do the thing anyway." The day of the trial arrived too quickly. They were transported to a neutral station orbiting a dying star. The Void Labyrinth existed in a pocket dimension, accessible only through a portal that the ancient races had built millennia ago. The portal looked like a tear in space, shimmering with colors that hurt to look at directly. Thousands of beings had gathered to watch. The trials were broadcast across the galaxy. This wasn't just a test, it was entertainment. It was politics. It was a way for species to prove their superiority. The human team stood at the entrance. Daeho wore his engineering suit, pockets filled with tools and equipment. Hana carried her analysis devices. June had his command interface linked to their small ship's AI, though he doubted it would work inside the labyrinth. Velthar approached them. Up close, he was even more imposing. "Humans," he said, and the word sounded like an insult. "I have watched your species since you joined us. You fight each other. You destroy your own planet. You rush into danger without thinking." He leaned closer. "That is not courage. That is foolishness. You will fail by Chamber 3, perhaps Chamber 2 if you are unlucky." Daeho met his gaze. "We'll see." "Yes," Velthar said. "We will." They entered the portal. The sensation was like being torn apart and reassembled in the same instant. Daeho gasped, stumbling as solid ground appeared beneath his feet. They were standing on a platform floating in space. Around them, a star system was dying. A massive red giant was in its final stages of collapse, and its gravitational pull was tearing apart the planets orbiting it. A planet nearby was breaking apart. Chunks of land the size of mountains were being pulled into space. And on those chunks, Daeho could see structures, cities, people. A voice echoed around them, the labyrinth's AI. "Chamber 1. Rescue as many survivors as you can before the star collapses completely. You have 1 hour. Your shuttle is equipped for 20 evacuees. Choose wisely." Hana pulled up her scanner. "There are hundreds of thousands of people down there. Maybe millions." "We can't save them all," June said. His voice was tight. "The shuttle only holds 20. We take 20, and we leave." Daeho was already moving toward the shuttle. "No." "What?" June followed him. "We're not leaving people behind." Daeho climbed into the shuttle and started examining the interior. His hands moved quickly, pulling panels off the walls. "This is a test of courage, right? They want to see what we'll do." "Daeho, we can't." "We can." He looked up at both of them. "We don't accept their limits. We make new ones." For the next hour, they worked like they had never worked before. Daeho reconfigured the shuttle, removing unnecessary systems and cramming every available space with rescue pods he built from debris. Hana coordinated with the survivors below, prioritizing those who could help others. June piloted the shuttle, through impossible maneuvers, dodging chunks of planet as they fell into the star. They made 7 trips. The shuttle was never meant to make more than 1. By the time the star collapsed, they had saved 412 people. The shuttle was held together with welding patches and prayer. Daeho had burns on his arms from emergency repairs. Hana's voice was hoarse from shouting coordinates. June's hands were shaking from exhaustion. They materialized back at the observation station. The crowd was silent. The courage scale, a measurement system the council had used for 10,000 years, showed their reading. It was supposed to max out at 100. Their reading was 127. Velthar stared at the display. "Impossible," he said. "The scale is malfunctioning." But Mirasoon was watching the humans with new interest. "Is it?" she asked softly. Daeho, Hana, and June stood together, exhausted but alive. They had completed Chamber 1, 9 more to go. The observation deck was crowded with alien dignitaries, all watching displays that showed the human team resting in a recovery chamber. Medical scanners indicated their vital signs: elevated heart rate, stress hormones flooding their systems, minor injuries across all 3. By human standards, they were exhausted. By galactic standards, they should have been dead. Velthar stood with his advisors studying the courage scale readings. "Run the diagnostic again," he ordered. "The equipment must be damaged." A technician, a small insectoid creature, chittered nervously. "We have run it 5 times, Honored Veltar. The equipment functions perfectly. The humans genuinely registered a courage reading of 127. "Impossible," Velthar repeated, but his voice carried less certainty now. Mirazun drifted closer, her form flickering between states. "Perhaps our understanding is what needs adjustment, not the equipment." Inside the recovery chamber, Deho was wrapping bandages around his burned forearms. The medical AI had offered synthetic skin treatment, but he had waved it off. They needed to save their energy for what came next. 412 people, Hana said quietly. She was sitting with her back against the wall, eyes closed. "We actually saved 412. "The shuttle shouldn't have held together," June said. He was reviewing flight data on his tablet, still not quite believing what he had done. "I broke at least 40 laws of physics keeping that thing in the air." "Laws are more like suggestions," Deho said with a tired grin. A chime sounded. The AI's voice filled the room. "Rest period complete. Chamber 2 will begin in 5 minutes. They didn't feel ready. But ready or not, the labyrinth didn't wait. Chamber 2 materialized around them before they could brace themselves. They stood in a docking bay. Ahead of them floated a massive ship, dark and silent. Warning signs in a dozen languages covered its hull. Biohazard symbols glowed red. The AI's voice echoed again. "Chamber 2. The vessel before you contains a deadly plague. It has killed millions across 3 systems. Standard protocol requires destruction of the ship and all contents. However, research data aboard may hold the cure. You have 1 hour before the ship's orbit decays and it burns up in the atmosphere below. Choose." "That's not a choice," June said. "That's suicide." Hana was already scanning the ship. "The plague is airborne. Mortality rate near 100%. Even our containment suits won't hold against it for more than a few minutes." Deho looked at the ship, then at his teammates. "What if we don't go inside?" "The data is inside," Hana said. "The data is electronic, right? On computers?" Deho was already moving toward their equipment. "We don't need to go in. We need to access their systems remotely. Through contaminated hardware?" June shook his head. "We'd have to physically connect. Someone has to board that ship." Silence stretched between them. Then Hana stood up. "I'll go. I'm the one who can identify the right data fastest." "No," Deho and June said together. "This isn't about being brave," Hana said. "It's about being practical." "I'm the only one who can—" "We all go," Deho interrupted. "We rig a containment system. We go in together. We get the data together. We get out together." "That's 3 times the risk," June pointed out. "Then we work 3 times as fast." They spent 40 precious minutes building what should have been impossible. Deho created a portable clean room using shuttle parts and electromagnetic fields. Hana programmed a data extraction virus that could pull research files in seconds. June calculated a flight path that would let them approach and retreat in minimum time. With 15 minutes left, they boarded the plague ship. The interior was a nightmare. Bodies floated in zero gravity, frozen in death. The disease had worked fast, too fast. Hana tried not to look at their faces as she navigated toward the research deck. "Found it," she called out. Her hands flew across the console. The extraction virus worked, pulling terabytes of data, but alarms started blaring. The quarantine system, still functional, had detected intrusion. "They're going to seal this section," June shouted. "We've got maybe 30 seconds. The data was only half transferred." Hana's finger hovered over the cancel button. Half the data might be enough. It might save millions instead of billions. It was the smart choice. She kept the transfer running. "Hana." Deho grabbed her arm. 20 more seconds, she said. "Just 20 more." Deho looked at June. Some communication passed between them without words. June nodded. "Then we wait 20 seconds. The doors began closing. Massive steel barriers designed to contain the plague forever. 15 seconds, 10. The data transfer hit 90%. Now. Hana yanked the drive free. They ran. Deho was ahead, June behind, Hana in the middle. The gap in the door was shrinking. 3 feet. 2 feet. 1. Deho dove through. Hana followed. June threw himself forward, but his boot caught on the door's edge. The barrier ground against his leg, alarm screaming. Deho grabbed June's arms and pulled. The boot tore free. They tumbled into their shuttle as the plague ship's doors sealed with a final terrible sound. They made it to the safe zone with 3 minutes to spare. The quarantine protocols required them to remain in isolation for 6 days, while automated systems tested them for contamination. 6 days in a white room, not knowing if they had been infected, if they would die coughing blood like the people on that ship. The galaxy watched. Some species commented that this was foolish. The logical choice was to destroy the ship and accept the losses. Humans had risked 3 lives for data that might not even help, but on the 6th day, they were declared clean. And the data they had retrieved contained the cure. The plague that had killed millions would kill no more. Their courage reading had climbed to 153. Chamber 3 came immediately after their release. They barely had time to eat before the labyrinth pulled them in again. This time they stood in a military command center. Screens showed a battle in progress. Their battle. The AI had created scenarios where each of them was separated, facing impossible situations. The voice of the labyrinth explained, "Chamber 3, save yourselves or save each other. Complete the mission or protect your team, choose." Daiho's scenario showed Hana trapped in an exploding facility. He could reach her, but it meant abandoning his post defending civilians. Hana's scenario showed Jun's ship spiraling toward a star. She could save him, but only by giving up research that would prevent future disasters. Jun's scenario showed Daiho surrounded by enemies. He could extract him, but the mission to secure vital resources would fail. Every species before them had chosen the mission. It was logical. 3 lives versus millions. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Every human chose their teammate. Daiho abandoned his post. Hana deleted her research. Jun scrapped the mission. They chose each other without hesitation, without doubt. The labyrinth's AI seemed to pause as if confused. This wasn't how the test worked. Species were supposed to struggle with the choice, to weigh the options, to eventually choose the greater good over personal loyalty. But then something unexpected happened. Jun, while flying toward Daiho's location, found a third option. He couldn't complete the mission and save Daiho. But what if he changed the mission parameters? He accessed the simulation's code, forcing his consciousness directly into the labyrinth systems. It was dangerous. It could burn out his mind permanently, but it might let him rewrite the scenario. His hands moved across controls that shouldn't exist, hacking reality itself. Pain exploded through his skull. Blood ran from his nose. But the code changed. Suddenly, Daiho had backup. Hana's research wasn't deleted. It was distributed to 1,000 locations. Jun's ship stabilized. The missions were complete and everyone was saved. They materialized back at the observation deck, all 3 of them breathing hard. Jun collapsed. Medical teams rushed forward. "He'll survive," a doctor reported. "But he suffered neural damage. He may have permanent effects." Jun, barely conscious, smiled. "Worth it." The courage scale showed 198. The observation deck was completely silent now. Velthar stared at the humans like they were creatures from a nightmare. Mira soon moved closer to the displays, her form solidifying with what might have been excitement. "They don't just face the challenges," she said. "They reject the premise of the challenges entirely. They refuse to accept that there are only certain choices available." Another council member, a crystalline being that communicated through light, flickered a message. "This is not normal behavior. This is not strategic thinking. This is human," Mira soon finished. Daiho, helping Jun to medical, looked back at the observation window. He couldn't see the aliens watching, but he knew they were there. He raised his hand and gave a small wave. 3 chambers down, 7 to go. The galaxy was beginning to realize that humans didn't play by the same rules as everyone else. Jun spent 2 days in medical recovery, while synthetic neurons repaired the damage he had done to his brain. The doctors said he was lucky. Another 30 seconds interfaced with the labyrinth's systems and he would have been permanently brain damaged. As it was, he now had a faint tremor in his left hand that might never go away. Was it worth it? Velthar asked. He had come to medical personally, something he had never done for any other species during the trials. Jun looked at the alien without fear. "Yes, you risked your mind for a simulation. Nothing in that chamber was real." "My friends were real," Jun said. "That's all that mattered." Velthar studied him for a long moment. "I do not understand your species. Most days we don't understand ourselves." When Jun was released, they had only 6 hours before Chamber 4. The labyrinth did not allow for long recovery periods. It was designed to push participants to their absolute limits, to test courage when minds and bodies were already breaking. They gathered in their preparation room. Daeho was checking equipment. Hana was reviewing data on the remaining chambers, though information was scarce. Jun sat quietly, his left hand trembling slightly as he tried to grip his tablet. "You don't have to continue," Hana said softly. "No one would think less of you," Jun laughed. "That's a lie and you know it. Everyone would think less of me. Especially me." He met her eyes. "We finish this together." The warning chime sounded. Chamber 4 was ready. They entered and found themselves in a room with 3 pedestals. On each pedestal was a sphere that glowed with soft blue light. The AI's voice spoke, and for the first time, it sounded almost gentle. Chamber 4. Sacrifice. Each of you must choose what you will give up permanently to save lives you will never meet. People you will never know existed. Choose what matters to you. The more valuable your sacrifice, the more lives are saved. Words appeared above each pedestal, showing options, memories, skills, years of life, senses, abilities. Each had a number attached, showing how many lives would be saved for each sacrifice. Hana looked at the numbers. "This is a calculation. They want us to optimize. Give up just enough to save the maximum number while keeping ourselves functional. That's what other species do," Daeho said. "That's the smart thing to do," Hana replied. They stood in silence, each contemplating the pedestals before them. Records showed that most species spent hours here, carefully weighing their choices. The Skirth had famously sacrificed only minor memories, the taste of certain foods, the smell of flowers from their home world. Small losses that still saved thousands of lives. It was efficient. It was logical. Daeho stepped forward first. He placed his hand on the sphere. "I give everything," the sphere pulsed. An error message appeared in glowing red text. "Invalid input, please specify parameters." "Everything," Daeho repeated. "All my memories, all my skills. Every year I have left, every sense, everything that makes me who I am. I offer it all." The sphere flickered frantically. "Input exceeds acceptable parameters. No species has offered total sacrifice unable to process." "Then expand your parameters," Daeho said. Hana grabbed his arm. "Daeho, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." He looked at her with calm certainty. "If my life can save others, then that's what it's for. All of it. Not just the convenient parts." Jun stepped up to his pedestal. His hand shook as he placed it on the sphere. "Same. Everything. Process that." "Jun, no." Hana started. "Your turn," Jun said quietly. Hana looked between her 2 friends. She thought about her family back on Earth, her research, her dreams of understanding alien minds and building bridges between species. Everything she had worked for her entire life. Everything she was. She put her hand on the sphere. "Everything," she whispered. The 3 spheres erupted with light so bright the observation deck cameras temporarily blinded. When vision returned, the humans were still standing there, unchanged. The pedestals were smoking, circuits overloaded. The AI's voice returned, and now it sounded uncertain. "The system cannot accept your offerings. No species has ever. You would give everything? For strangers? For people who will never know your names?" "Yes," all 3 answered together. "Why?" Daeho smiled tiredly. "Because someone has to care about them." And were someone, the chamber dissolved. They had passed, though the system had refused their sacrifices. The courage scale hit 227. In the observation deck, several council members were having what could only be described as emotional breakdowns. A methane-breathing delegate kept repeating that the readings must be wrong. A crystalline representative had gone completely dark, unable to process what they had witnessed. Velthar stood very still, his 3 eyes fixed on the humans. "Mirasoon," he said quietly. "What have we invited into our council?" "I am beginning to wonder," she replied, "if we should be asking what we have kept out for so long." Chamber 5 began immediately. The humans barely had time to catch their breath before the world shifted again. They found themselves separated, each in their own space. Each facing darkness, Daeho stood in an endless void. Slowly, shapes formed around him. He saw himself lying in rubble, trapped, unable to move. He watched himself die slowly while rescue teams stopped searching, gave up, went home. He experienced helplessness in its purest form, being unable to save himself, unable to call for help, unable to do anything but wait for the end. Hana stood in a bright room that slowly faded. People walked past her, through her, as if she didn't exist. She tried to speak but made no sound. She tried to reach out, but her hands passed through everything. She watched herself being forgotten, erased from every memory, every record, every moment of history. She ceased to matter, ceased to exist in any way that counted. June floated in darkness alone. Not alone in a room, alone in the universe. Every other living thing gone. Every star dead. Every world cold. He had infinite time and nothing to do with it. Eternal isolation, eternal silence, eternal emptiness. Forever and ever and ever. Most species, when faced with these fears, either shut down emotionally to survive or endured through mental discipline. They waited out the scenario. They proved they could face their fear by outlasting it. The humans did something different. Dae-ho, trapped and dying, started planning. If he was conscious, he had time. If he had time, he could think. If he could think, he could find a way. Even in his last moments, even knowing rescue wouldn't come, he mentally worked through what he would do if someone did arrive. How he would tell them where others might be trapped. What information might save the next person. He turned his death into data that might help someone else survive. Hana, being forgotten, started remembering others. If she was disappearing, she would use her last moments of consciousness to hold on to the memories of people she had loved. If she couldn't be remembered, at least she could remember. She spoke their names into the void. Her mother, her father, her teachers, her friends, even people she had met once and never saw again. She proved that even if she was erased, what she had witnessed still mattered. June, alone in the dead universe, began building. Even if no one would see it. Even if it would never matter. He imagined structures, art, stories. He created meaning in the void because creating was what living things did. If he was the last consciousness, he would use that consciousness to make something, anything, to prove that existence had been worth it. The AI pulled them from the scenarios after what felt like years but had only been hours. They collapsed together in a neutral space, shaking, crying, holding on to each other. That was cruel, Hana said through tears. Yes, the AI agreed. It was, but you faced it. More than faced it, you defied it. Most species simply endure. You transformed suffering into purpose. Chamber 6 manifested before they were ready. A simple room with a simple question displayed on the walls in every language known to the galaxy. Save your species or save the galaxy. Choose. A counter appeared. They had 10 minutes to decide. This was the most famous test in the trials. Every species that had reached this far had chosen the same way. They saved their own. It was instinct. It was evolution. It was the most basic drive of any living thing. Ensure your species survives. The Skirth had chosen themselves without hesitation. The Lumini had debated for exactly 2 minutes before choosing themselves. Even the most enlightened, most peaceful species had made the same choice. Species survival trumped everything. Dae-ho, Hana, and June sat down and talked. If we choose humanity, Hana said, billions of other beings die. Trillions, maybe. If we choose the galaxy, June said, humanity dies. Everyone we know. Everyone we love. Earth becomes a dead rock. Our families, Hana whispered. Everyone, Dae-ho agreed. The counter ticked down. 5 minutes remaining. I can't make this choice, June said. I can't decide that humanity is worth more than everyone else. But I can't condemn our species either. There's no right answer, Hana said. No, Dae-ho said slowly. But there's a human answer. They looked at him. Someone has to make the hard choice, he said. Someone has to be willing to sacrifice everything, even themselves, for something bigger. Because if everyone only saves themselves, what are we saving? What's the point of survival if it means being the kind of species that would let everyone else die? 2 minutes left. My family would understand, Hana said quietly. They raised me to help others. All others. My crew would do the same, June added. They'd hate me for choosing them if it meant this much death. 1 minute. Dae-ho stood up and walked to the console. His hand shook as he pressed the button. We choose the galaxy. The chamber went white. They were transported back to the observation deck. Alarms were blaring. The courage scale had stopped functioning entirely. The last reading before it shut down was 498. Velthar stared at the humans with something that might have been horror or awe. They chose extinction over survival, he said. That's not courage. That's insanity. No, Mirazun said. She sounded shaken. That's something we've never seen before. I don't have a word for it. One of the human observers in the deck stepped forward, an elderly woman named Suji who had come to watch her planet's representatives. We have a word for it, she said. It's called hope. The council chamber held an emergency session for the first time in 300 years. Representatives from every species gathered in confusion and alarm. The courage scale had never malfunctioned in 10,000 years of trials. Now it was completely broken. They must be cheating somehow, insisted a delegate from the Vex Collective. No organic species can register these readings. We have checked everything, a technician reported. There is no cheating. The humans are simply exceeding every parameter we have for measuring courage. Belthar stood at the center of the chaos. For the first time in his long life, he looked uncertain. Stop the trials. They have proven enough. No one questions humanity's courage now. We can't stop, Mirazun said. The labyrinth runs its course. Either the participants withdraw or they continue to the end. A message console lit up. It was from the human team. June had written 3 words. We continue forward. The observation deck filled beyond capacity as Chamber 7 prepared to manifest. This chamber had a reputation. It was called the Last Stand, and it had never been completed. Not once, not by any species. Most teams didn't even survive it. The simulations were too brutal, the psychological damage too severe. The average survival time was 14 minutes before participants either retreated or suffered complete mental breakdowns. The humans appeared in what looked like a small town. Buildings lined narrow streets. In the center was a shelter filled with civilians, men, women, children of a dozen different species. And approaching from all directions was an army. The AI's voice carried no emotion. Chamber 7, the last stand. Defend the civilians until evacuation arrives. Reinforcements will not come. Victory is impossible. Survival is unlikely. Show us how you face certain death. Deho checked his weapons. Standard issue rifle, half charge, 3 grenades, a knife. Well, he said. This seems fair. Hana was scanning the approaching forces. 2,000 enemy combatants. Advanced weapons. Armored vehicles. Air support. She looked at her own equipment, a medical kit and a small pistol. We have supplies for maybe 20 minutes of combat. Then we make 20 minutes count, June said. He was already organizing the civilians, checking for anyone with combat experience. Anyone who could help. The enemy force attacked at dawn. The galaxy watched in real time as 3 humans fought an impossible battle. Deho turned every building into a fortress, every street into a trap. He rigged explosives from household chemicals. He created firing positions from furniture. He made the enemy pay for every inch of ground with blood and time. Hana didn't just treat wounded. She organized civilians into support teams. Children ran ammunition. Elderly prepared supplies. Everyone had a role. Everyone mattered. She turned a shelter of frightened refugees into a community of survivors. June commanded the defense like he was conducting a symphony. He knew they couldn't win. But winning wasn't the point. Every minute they held was another minute those civilians lived. Every enemy soldier tied down here was one less attacking somewhere else. If they were going to die, they would die in a way that mattered. 14 minutes passed. The point where every other species had failed. The humans kept fighting. 30 minutes. An hour. 2 hours. Deho had been shot twice. Hana's medical supplies were gone. June was fighting with a broken arm, his left hand still trembling from the neural damage. But they didn't stop. In the observation deck, no one was speaking. No one was even moving. They simply watched as 3 humans refused to give up, refused to retreat, refused to accept that death was the only option. At 3 hours, something unexpected happened. The civilians started fighting too. A schoolteacher picked up a weapon. A shopkeeper defended a barricade. A child no more than 10 in human years dragged wounded to safety while bullets flew overhead. The humans hadn't just defended them. They had inspired them. This isn't in the simulation parameters, a technician whispered. The civilians are supposed to be passive. They're not supposed to fight back. The humans changed them, Mirazun said with wonder. They made them brave. At 4 hours, Deho's rifle finally died. He threw it aside and picked up an enemy weapon. Hana was using her last bandages on a civilian who had taken a bullet meant for her. June was hoarse from shouting commands, his voice nearly gone. The enemy commander, part of the simulation, spoke over loudspeakers. "You have fought well. Surrender now and the civilians will be spared." Deho, bleeding from multiple wounds, shouted back, "Come take us!" The final assault came like a wave. The humans formed a last circle around the shelter. They had no ammunition left. They had no working weapons. They had nothing but their own bodies between the enemy and the civilians. Deho used his knife. Hana fought with her hands. June wielded a piece of broken pipe. The simulation ended abruptly. Not because they failed. Not because they died, but because the AI stopped it. The humans stood in a white void, gasping, covered in simulated blood and wounds that felt entirely real. The AI's voice spoke, and for the first time it sounded almost shaken. 4 hours and 17 minutes. You lasted 4 hours and 17 minutes. The courage scale registered readings over 700 before it ceased functioning. I have observed thousands of species across millennia. I have never seen anything like this. You knew you would die. You knew there was no hope. Why did you continue? Deho, barely able to stand, smiled with bloody teeth. Because they were counting on us. The chamber shifted. They had passed the last stand. Only 3 chambers remained. But first, medical teams insisted they receive treatment. Real treatment this time, not just field patches. They spent 18 hours in regeneration pods while synthetic tissue repaired damage and nutrients rebuilt their exhausted bodies. When they emerged, the galaxy had changed. Messages flooded in from across the council. Species that had never spoken to humanity were requesting diplomatic meetings. The Skirth Dominion had sent an official apology for Velthar's earlier mockery. 3 different civilizations had offered alliance treaties. One species had simply sent a message that said, "We understand now." Suji, the elderly human observer, met them in the recovery room. "You're heroes," she said. "Everyone on Earth is watching. They're cheering for you in every city." "We're not done yet," Hana said quietly. "I know. That's why they're cheering." Chamber 8 manifested the next day. The humans appeared in a memory archive, a vast library of human history stored as pure experience. The AI explained the task. Some memories are beautiful. Some are terrible. Some contain warnings that future generations need. You must erase the beautiful memories to preserve the terrible ones. Forget joy to remember pain. Choose. They walked through the archives together. They saw memories of first kisses, children laughing, sunsets on Earth, weddings, achievements, moments of pure happiness. And they saw memories of wars, disasters, genocides, failures, and atrocities. "The beautiful memories make life worth living," Hana said. "But the terrible ones teach us what to never do again." "Every species tries to keep both," June said. "They try to find some compromise, some way to preserve everything." "We don't have that option," Deho said. He was standing in front of a memory of the first human landing on Mars. A moment of triumph and wonder. His hand hovered over the deletion key. Future humans need to know what we're capable of. The good and the bad, especially the bad. They spent hours saying goodbye to humanity's beautiful memories. They mourned each deletion. They cried as they erased moments that defined human history. But they preserved every war crime, every injustice, every moment of cruelty and failure. When they were done, Hana was sobbing. "How can we ask future generations to live without knowing joy?" "We're not," Deho said softly. "We're trusting them to create new joy, and we're making sure they never forget the cost of cruelty." Chamber 9 came without warning. They stood in a digital simulation, beautiful and complex, humming with artificial life. The AI spoke. "This simulation will collapse without a guardian. Someone must remain here conscious, maintaining it forever. They will never return to reality. They will exist only to protect this place. Who volunteers?" "I will," Deho said immediately. "No, I will," Hana said. "I'm the logical choice," June insisted. "My neural damage makes me less effective in reality anyway." They argued for an hour. Each insisted they should be the one to sacrifice. Each built a case for why they should suffer while the others went free. It turned into the strangest debate. 3 people fighting for the right to be imprisoned forever. Finally, Deho laughed. It was exhausted, slightly hysterical laughter. "Listen to us. We're arguing about who gets to be the martyr. Because we're human," Hana said. "And humans are idiots." "The best kind of idiots," June added. The AI interrupted. The chamber is complete. Your willingness to volunteer, all three of you, was the test. Species that can't agree who should sacrifice have failed to understand the meaning of sacrifice. You all passed the moment you all volunteered. 2 chambers down. 1 remained. Chamber 10, the ultimate challenge. The chamber that no species had ever reached. The chamber that existed only in theoretical records because no one had survived long enough to enter it. The humans stood at the entrance. They were exhausted beyond measure. Daeho's burns were still healing. Hana's voice was hoarse from crying. June's hand shook constantly now. They had given everything they had and then found more to give. A message came through from Velthar himself. It displayed on a screen before them. Stop, please, you have proven enough. Humanity's courage is beyond question, beyond measure. You can withdraw with more honor than any species in history. Don't risk your lives further. The humans looked at each other. A silent conversation passed between them in the way that only people who have faced death together can communicate. June typed a response. We didn't come here for honor. We came to finish. They entered Chamber 10 together, hand in hand, ready for whatever came next. Chamber 10 was different from the beginning. There were no enemies, no disasters, no impossible choices or horrific scenarios. Instead, Daeho, Hana, and June found themselves standing in a simple room with walls made of mirrors. The AI's voice spoke, softer than before. Chamber 10, the mirror of civilization. Every species that reaches this point must face the truth of what they are. Not what they pretend to be, not what they hope to become, but what they truly are in all their complexity. Most cannot bear the sight. The mirrors began to show images. Human history unfolded in brutal, honest detail. They saw the wars. Every war. Every soldier who died screaming. Every civilian caught in the crossfire. Every child who starved because armies needed supplies. The mirrors showed the Holocaust, the atomic bombs, the genocides across continents. They showed slavery, torture, systematic cruelty inflicted by humans on other humans for reasons that seemed meaningless in hindsight. Hana turned away, tears streaming down her face. I can't watch this. You must, the AI said. This is your species. This is what humans have done. But the mirrors didn't stop with the atrocities. They also showed the helpers, the people who ran toward danger when everyone else fled, the doctors who worked until they collapsed, the teachers who spent their own money to feed hungry students, the strangers who gave blood, donated organs, risked their lives for people they would never meet. They showed humans forming communities, creating art, exploring the stars not for conquest, but for wonder. The mirrors showed human parents staying up all night with sick children, showed humans adopting orphans from other countries, showed humans protesting injustice, even when it meant losing everything, showed humans building schools in war zones, delivering medicine to remote villages, teaching literacy to anyone who wanted to learn. Daeho watched a scene of firefighters entering a burning building, knowing they might not come out, doing it anyway. We're capable of such evil, he said quietly. And such good, June added, watching paramedics work frantically to save a stranger's life. The mirrors showed more. They showed humanity's failures, the environmental destruction, the inequality, the preventable suffering. But they also showed scientists racing to fix climate change, activists fighting for justice, ordinary people making small choices every day to be kinder, to be better. Hana stood transfixed before an image of a human child sharing food with another child from a different country, a different culture, a different religion. We're not one thing, she whispered. We're everything, the best and the worst, all at once. The AI's voice filled the chamber. Yes, and most species cannot accept this contradiction. They see their darkest moments and either deny them or despair. They see their brightest moments and either feel unworthy or become arrogant. They cannot hold both truths at once. Can you? The mirrors shifted to show the present moment. They showed Earth, where billions of humans were watching this trial. The mirrors showed the good ones. People donating to charities, volunteering at hospitals, taking care of elderly neighbors. And they showed the bad ones. People committing crimes, spreading hatred, choosing cruelty. This is humanity, the AI said, All of it. The heroes and the villains. The saints and the sinners. The wise and the foolish. Can you accept this? Can you face your own species without flinching? Deho stepped closer to the mirrors. He looked at the wars, the genocides, the preventable deaths. He felt shame and anger and grief. Then he looked at the helpers, the healers, the builders. He felt pride and hope and determination. Yes, he said. This is us. All of us. And knowing what we're capable of in the dark is exactly why we have to choose the light. June moved to stand beside him. We're not perfect, we never will be, but we're trying. Every generation we try to be better than the last. We fail sometimes. We fail a lot. But we keep trying. Hana joined them, her face still wet with tears. We can't change what we've done. We can't erase the atrocities, but we can learn from them. We can make sure they never happen again. We can be the people who remember the worst of us, so we never become that again. The AI was silent for a long moment. And knowing all of this, knowing your capacity for both creation and destruction, knowing your history of both heroism and horror, would you still choose to save others? Would you still sacrifice yourselves for species you barely know? All three answered together, yes. Why? Deho smiled, tired but genuine. Because we know what we're capable of when we give in to fear and hatred. We've seen what happens when people only care about themselves. We've lived through that history. And we decided a long time ago that we won't be that anymore. We'll be the ones who help, who sacrifice, who choose compassion even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because someone has to, Hana added. Someone has to be brave enough to care about everyone, not just their own tribe. And if not, us then who? June stepped forward and touched one of the mirrors. Every species you've tested, you've asked them to face their nature. But I think you've been asking the wrong question. It's not about whether we can face what we are. It's about what we choose to do with what we are. The mirrors began to crack. Not breaking, transforming. The glass shifted and reformed, creating new images. They showed humanity's future. Not one future, but many possibilities. Some showed humans spreading across the galaxy, bringing medicine and knowledge and hope. Others showed humans making the same mistakes again, falling into the same patterns of cruelty and short-sightedness. The future is not written, the AI said. You have the capacity for greatness and the capacity for evil. Which will you choose? Both, Hana said. We'll be both because we're human. We'll make mistakes, we'll hurt people, we'll fail, but we'll also heal people. We'll succeed, we'll try to do better. That's what being human means, being flawed, but trying anyway. The chamber filled with light. The mirrors dissolved. The AI's voice spoke one final time, and it sounded almost respectful. In 10,000 years of testing courage, no species has ever completed all 10 chambers. You are the first. But more importantly, you have shown us that we were measuring the wrong thing. We measured the ability to suppress fear, to calculate risk, to optimize survival. We thought that was courage. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is not logical calculation. It is not self-preservation. Courage is feeling terror and acting anyway. Courage is understanding the cost and paying it anyway. Courage is knowing you might fail and trying anyway. You have not broken the scale. You have revealed that the scale itself was inadequate. They materialized in the observation deck. Every delegate from every species was there. The chamber was packed beyond capacity. And as the humans appeared exhausted and barely standing, something unprecedented happened. The entire Galactic Council stood. Species that had never shown respect to anyone, species that considered themselves superior to all others, species that had been exploring the stars for thousands of years. All of them rose to their feet. The applause started slowly. One being, then another, then dozens, then hundreds. It wasn't polite acknowledgement, it was genuine respect, genuine awe. The sound filled the chamber and echoed through communication channels across the galaxy. Velthar approached the humans. The massive reptilian being moved slowly, deliberately. He stopped before them and did something no Skirth had ever done to another species. He bowed. Fully. Completely. I was wrong, he said, his voice carrying through the silent chamber. I called your recklessness foolishness. I mocked your impulsiveness. I did not understand that what I saw as weakness was actually strength beyond my comprehension. Humanity, I am honored to share this galaxy with you. Mira soon materialized beside him. The courage scale has been retired, she announced. It will never be used again. Instead, we have adopted a new phrase for acts of extraordinary bravery. We call it breaking the scale. It is the highest honor we can bestow. She turned to the humans. Deho, Hana, Jun, you are the first to break the scale, but you will not be the last. You have shown us what true courage looks like. We will learn from you. The three humans looked at each other. They had come here expecting to fail, expecting to be mocked, expecting to prove that humanity was just another species trying to survive in a complicated galaxy. Instead, they had changed how the galaxy understood bravery itself. We didn't do anything special, Deho said. We just did what any human would do. That, Mira soon replied, is precisely what makes it special. Years passed. The courage trials were eventually resumed, but with new parameters, new understanding, new respect for different kinds of bravery. Other species continued to participate, and some did remarkable things. But Chamber 10 remained unchanged, the mirror of civilization, and every species that reached it found themselves facing the same question the humans had answered. Can you accept what you are and still choose to be better? Deho returned to engineering work, helping design new ships that could reach unexplored regions of space. His burns had healed completely, but he kept the scars. When asked why he didn't have them removed, he said, "They remind me what I'm capable of." Hana founded an institute for interspecies understanding. She taught thousands of students, both human and alien, how to bridge the gaps between different minds. She never forgot the moment in Chamber 3 when she chose her friends over her mission, and she taught her students that loyalty wasn't a weakness. It was a strength that made everything else possible. June continued as a ship captain, but now he commanded mixed crews, humans working alongside aliens, learning from each other. His hand never stopped shaking, the neural damage permanent. But he wore it with pride. When crew members asked about it, he told them the truth. I earned this trying to save people I loved. Best decision I ever made. New species joined the council. Each time they were assigned human mentors to help them adjust. The humans took this role seriously, showing the newcomers around, answering their questions, helping them understand the complex politics of galactic civilization. And always eventually the new species would ask the same question: why do you help us so much? The answer was always some variation of the same theme. Because someone helped us once. Now it's our turn to help you. A young woman named Suji, the same Suji who had watched the trials from the observation deck, was assigned to mentor a species that had just achieved faster-than-light travel. They were small, timid creatures who had nearly destroyed themselves in civil wars before finally reaching for the stars. They were terrified of the council, terrified of other species, terrified of making mistakes. Suji took them to a memorial on Earth. It was a simple structure made of the same materials used in the Void Labyrinth. 3 statues stood there, Deho, Hana, and June, cast in bronze, standing together as they had during the trials. The alien delegation looked at the statues with reverence. These are your heroes, their leader said. The ones who broke the scale. They must have been extraordinary beings, Suji smiled. They were ordinary people who did extraordinary things. That's the secret, you see. Every human has that inside them. We're scared all the time. We doubt ourselves constantly. We make mistakes every day, but we decided a long time ago that being afraid isn't a reason to stop. It's a reason to keep going. But why? The alien asked. Why keep going when you're scared? Why help others when you have your own problems? Why sacrifice when you could save yourselves? Suji looked up at the stars, remembering the day she watched 3 humans change galactic history. Because someone has to care about everyone, not just themselves. Someone has to be brave enough to help even when it's hard. Someone has to choose compassion over calculation, hope over despair, action over acceptance. She looked back at the alien with gentle eyes. And we're someone. So we keep going. We keep helping. We keep trying, because that's what humans do. The alien was quiet for a moment. Then softly, Can you teach us to be like that? We can't teach you to be like us, Suji said. But we can show you that it's possible. That ordinary beings can face impossible challenges and find courage they didn't know they had. That fear doesn't have to stop you. That sacrifice isn't weakness, it's strength. The rest is up to you. Across the galaxy on 1,000 different worlds, humans were having similar conversations, teaching courage not through grand speeches but through quiet example, showing other species that bravery wasn't about being fearless. It was about being terrified and doing the right thing anyway. The courage scale was never rebuilt. The trials continued, but now they measured something more complex, something that couldn't be reduced to numbers. They measured character. They measured heart. They measured the willingness to keep going when everything seemed lost. And humanity? They kept doing what they had always done. They felt fear. They faced it. They helped others face theirs. They made mistakes and learned from them. They failed and got back up. They were scared and brave and foolish and wise all at the same time, because that's what it meant to be human. That's what it meant to break the scale. In a small hospital on Earth, an elderly man lay in bed surrounded by family. Deho was 97 years old now, his body finally giving out after a life spent helping others. His children and grandchildren filled the room, and several alien friends had come to say goodbye. A young journalist asked him, what was it like? Breaking the scale? Changing galactic history? Deho smiled, his voice weak but steady. We didn't change history. We just showed everyone what was already there. Every species has the capacity for courage. We just had to remind them what courage really means, which is acting despite fear, helping despite cost, hoping despite everything. He looked at his family, his friends, his life, choosing to be kind in a universe that doesn't require kindness, choosing to care about everyone, not just ourselves. That's all we did. That's all anyone needs to do. He died peacefully that night, surrounded by love. His funeral was attended by representatives from 43 different species, all of whom had learned about courage from humanity. And somewhere in the galaxy, in a training facility for the courage trials, new participants were preparing to enter the Void Labyrinth. They were from dozens of different species, different worlds, different ways of thinking, but they all knew the stories. They all knew about Deho, Hana, and June. They all knew what it meant to break the scale. One young participant, a being from a species that had joined the council only recently, asked their instructor, "Can we really do what the humans did?" The instructor, a grizzled veteran who had attempted the trials twice and failed both times, looked at the eager faces before them. Maybe, maybe not. But here's what I've learned from humans. It's not about whether you succeed or fail. It's about whether you try. It's about whether you care enough to face your fears and help others anyway. That's what breaking the scale really means. Not surpassing all limits, but refusing to accept that limits define you. The participants entered the labyrinth. Some would fail quickly. Others would surprise themselves with how far they got. A few might even complete all 10 chambers following in humanity's footsteps. But all of them would learn something important. They would learn that courage wasn't about being the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced. It was about being willing. Willing to try. Willing to fail. Willing to get back up and try again. Willing to help others even when helping was hard. They would learn that breaking the scale didn't mean being perfect. It meant being human, flawed, scared, determined, and kind. And across the galaxy, in classrooms and ship decks and government chambers and family homes, humans continued their work. Not because they were heroes. Not because they were special. But because someone had to care about everyone. Someone had to choose hope over despair. Someone had to be brave enough to help. And they were someone. So they kept going.